Hello. Welcome back to Xanthus Gaming. Today we're going to be looking at a spreadsheet that I've been spending the last week or so compiling. It gives us a lot of information from my last video about how to get different resources from different things out in the world, as well as a lot of very interesting, unusual surprises in how to obtain your best results for getting iron, stone, mechanical parts, that sort of thing. So we're going to go ahead and have a look at that. But before we start, I just want to take just a second to explain my methodology on it. When we're looking at the different resources, I took the amount of durability and the amount of resources, and I divided them to figure out a value for ratio. So for instance, for every 1 durability, you'll get 0.03 iron. And then I ranked them based on that durability to resource return ratio in order to determine what were the best items to go out there and break down with your tools. All right, let's go ahead and get into that. So there are a lot of things out in the world that you can get, which you have to craft in the game normally. So forged iron, forged steel, cement, cobblestone, honey, and short iron pipes can all be found out in the world with various tools and by various means. Feel free to pause the video here to have a look at the various things, but some of the standout things that are really crazy are the destroyed workbenches and concrete mixers and those sort of things. You really want to make sure you're taking those apart with a wrench. Munitions boxes that you find in military bases, you want to make sure you take apart with a pickaxe. And any sort of hospital beds, gurneys, or mattresses with the frames, you want to make sure you're taking those apart with the wrench as well. So you can go ahead and have a pause here and look at all the different things. There's also a link to the spreadsheet in the video description down below, but let's go ahead and move on to the next piece. All right, next up, looking at wood. No surprise, the 1200 tree is amazing. It's by far the best bang for your buck for cutting down trees and getting wood. You can also pick up chairs that are laying around all over the place and salvage them while you're out there scavenging, and that's a good way to go. Trees that are 600 and 900 are just a little bit worse than the 1200 trees. And then the driftwood that you find out in the desert is actually the next best thing. The 300 trees are significantly worse than the other trees, and the burnt trees are just the same as the 300 trees, significantly worse if your main goal is to just get wood. The burnt trees, however, have the bonus of having coal in them, and the tree stumps have the bonus of having honey in them. If you're out in the world, you could also break apart picnic tables, wine barrels, and wood pallets. However, I wouldn't recommend it because the return they give is really poor. All right, let's look at the next thing, which is going to be stone. All right, looking at stone, a surprise here is that the stone pallets that you find out in the world in the houses, they are all over the place, are by far the best way to get stone in the game. More than twice as good as any other mining method. Make sure you take those apart when you're out in the world and you see them. Also, the one thing that's changed from Alpha 16 to 17 is the giant boulders now give you more stone than the mini boulders. So make sure if you're going out just for stone, make sure you're hitting up those giant boulders instead of the mini boulders. Typically, what people had done in the previous alphas was run from mini boulder to mini boulder because they just give a lot better return. But now those giant boulders or digging underground will actually give you more stone. Also, bathtubs out in houses are pretty easy to break, and you can break them apart to get a decent amount of stone. Gravestones you can break for stone as well, however the return is pretty poor. Alright, we're going to go ahead and look at the next piece, which is going to be iron. Alright, when we're looking at the iron, make sure to pay particular close attention to the tool that we are using for each of these items, as it will directly affect the return you get for resources. That said, the concrete mixer and the workbench return tons of iron, so do the hospital beds and gurneys, as well as obviously iron nodes underground. Picking up the barracks chairs gives quite a bit of iron for little to no effort, and taking apart a stainless steel refrigerator, stove, or mattress and frame will also give you amazing return for your time if you're looking to just get iron. The destroyed chemistry station does offer quite a bit of iron, but not as much as the other things, and same with the spotlight. Toilets can be taken apart for iron as well as short iron pipes, and mini boulders clear below all these other things can give you raw iron as well. But these are the most reliable, easiest things to farm if you're not sure what you're doing. It's the middle of the night, you don't want to go into a house, you don't want to risk getting killed by zombies. run from mini boulder to mini boulder and mine those out. But alternatively, if you're out scavenging, make sure you take apart any of these things that you see because they'll give you quite a bit of iron. In addition to those things, you can also take apart iron desks, utility sinks, and shower heads, which give pretty good return for iron, as well as metal shelving. Anything down in the brown section, again, I wouldn't bother with because while they can give you iron, they're probably not worth the amount of time it'll take to get that resource. If you're looking for stone, the giant boulders are great, but they're really bad for raw iron. So if you're looking for both things, maybe look for the mini boulders instead of the big boulders. But anything, like I said, above the brown should be good for iron. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next thing, which is going to be brass. All right, looking at brass, the brass radiator that you can get by wrenching a car will give you the most brass return from any of the lootable items in the game. Brass candlesticks are next, and then brass doorknobs after that. As far as going out and using tools to get brass, you can use a wrench on pretty much any light, almost any light, and get brass, but some of the ones that stand out more than others are the brass dome light and the brass glass light, as well as the brass faucet that you can get with a pickaxe and then you salvage it once it's in your inventory. Outdoor lights give you brass, but not quite as much, so those indoor lights tend to give you a bit more bang for your buck as far as brass goes. Moving on to plastics, we have a lot of things that give plastic in low amounts and a few things that give plastic in good amounts for the amount of durability it takes. The laundry baskets are one hit and they instantly give you a nice burst of plastic. The water cooler jugs you can hit with your axe and get a burst of plastic, I think it's 5 or 6. The colored luggage, if you find some of those, use your wrench because you'll get quite a bit of plastic out of those. I believe it's like 13 to 16 on those. And then the tires, same thing, use your wrench. You'll get a lot of plastic out of a tire if you use your wrench. Don't use an axe on a tire unless you absolutely desperately need plastic and you don't have a wrench. The wrench will give you so much more plastic than the axe, it's not even funny. Also, TVs, either half TVs or full TVs, are very good sources of plastic as well as electrical parts, so be on the lookout for those. If you are out gathering electrical parts and you're also kind of wanting plastic, you might be on the lookout for the big store signs like the Poppin' Pills or Shotgun Messiah signs that are outside their store, the really big one. Those can be good sources of electrical parts and give you a little bit of plastic. And same with satellite dishes on top of houses can give you quite a few electrical parts and a little bit of plastic to go along with it. In addition to that, be on the lookout for destroyed battery banks and destroyed solar banks because they'll give you a little bit of plastic, but also more importantly, giving you forged iron, lots of iron, and a good amount of electrical parts. So those are high value items to look for. A bit of a strange one because usually the brown I say don't bother with, but some of the brown ones here give you some really good part returns. All right, let's go ahead and move on to electrical parts. All right, so there are a lot of options out there to get electrical parts. They're all over the place. If you didn't see my previous video, I go through almost every item one by one and wrench it down and show you the results. So feel free to check that out. There will be a link in the video description down below. But otherwise, we're just going to cover some of the highlights here. A flashlight that you can loot, get as loot just out in the world. You can scrap that and get 3 electrical parts. You can also take apart TVs, either half TVs or full TVs, and get quite a bit of electrical parts as well as a decent amount of plastic with it. The vent fans look like the top of the air conditioning units, except for they're flat against a wall or flat on the floor. Those will give you a ton of electrical parts and a ton of mechanical parts, as well as a good amount of short iron pipes. So highly recommend keeping your eye out for those. Gas pumps also can be taken apart for electrical parts and mechanical parts. In Alpha 16, they had gas in them too, but it looks like they might have removed that in this alpha, unless that changes in a future patch. In addition to that, you could be looking for beverage coolers, big store signs, satellite dishes, retro refrigerators, stoves, and electrical boxes as excellent sources of electrical parts. In addition to that, open signs, ceiling fans, x-rays, industrial lights, air conditioners, stainless steel refrigerators, control panels, and microwaves are good sources for electrical parts. Because there are so many sources for electrical parts, I wouldn't bother with anything orange or below here. Only look for the yellow or above stuff. unless you are looking for some of the other things that come along with the electrical parts. For instance, the destroyed battery bank, always take those apart because they give you forged iron and a ton of iron with it as well. Washing machines, if you want mechanical parts, that's a good option too. It'll give you a little bit of electrical parts and mechanical parts. Same with cars. Cars give you lots of other things. Always consider those. And trash compactor is one of the best sources for mechanical parts. Speaking of, let's go ahead and move on into the mechanical parts. By the way, if through any of this video you haven't been able to see the key down below, the link to the spreadsheet will also be in the video description, as I said earlier. So be sure to check that out. All right, let's move on to mechanical parts. Alrighty, not nearly as many sources of mechanical parts compared to electrical parts, but one thing that can kind of offset that is any gun you find out there in the world, if it's not of value to sell to the trader and you don't need it, you can scrap it and get mechanical parts. And since guns are like candy, they're a very good source of mechanical parts. Office chairs, also an excellent source of mechanical parts and give you a little bit of iron. Destroyed workbenches are just godly in general. Take them apart, they give you mechanical parts, electrical parts, iron, forged iron, and wood. Destroyed workbenches, always take them apart with a wrench, never pass them up. Vent fans, just like we talked about in the electrical parts section, can be used to get mechanical parts as well as electrical parts. Gas pumps, charcoal grills, pull tops, and trash compactors are also excellent sources of mechanical parts. In particular, the pull tops will also give you forged steel and forged iron to go with it, so make sure you look for those. They're oftentimes in back of gas stations or like mechanic shop type POIs, so be on the lookout for those. Air conditioners, filing cabinets, washing machines, shopping carts, and exercise bikes are also excellent sources as well. And I would consider the ceiling fan and car as always. The regular grill, that's not the charcoal grill, the like more square based grill, I wouldn't bother with. And wall ovens, I also wouldn't bother with. So that is a overview of all the different major resources that you can go out and scavenge with different tools out in the world. I hope this has helped you in your journeys going forward. If it has, consider leaving a like, a comment, and also subscribing. Either way, I want to say thank you guys for giving me the time to share this with you today, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye Twitch, bye Reddit, bye YouTube.